Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, a audio podcast. We've got a exciting guest from Hong Kong today, an information designer, typographer, and academic who is currently the head of Department of Communication Design and Director of Center for Communication Design at Hong Kong Design Institute, Distinguished Research Fellow at the Type Lab of Shanghai Academy of Fine Arts, wow, this is a mouthful, at Shanghai University, with previous appointments as Associate Professor and Director of MA Information Design at Reading in the UK, leader of the Communication Design discipline and founding leader of the Information Design Lab at Hong Kong Polytechnic, among others. We're welcoming Keith Tam today. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks very much, Thomas. Thanks for your invitation.
My pleasure. If you're ready, we can just go right into the 20 questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay. The first question is, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
I think before anything else, I always consider myself a designer. I guess I was trained as a communication designer, or the older way of saying this would be graphic designer, but my focus is mainly on typography and information design. That's my main, my primary interests. I like to say I'm an academic, but maybe I'm more of an administrator these days. I manage things. I lead an academic department, as you said in intro, and I founded and also I run a research center, the Center for Communication Design. So yeah, a lot of things are involved in that kind of role, a lot of management and admin stuff. But on the side, believe it or not, I still do some consulting. I still practice a little bit. I research. Yeah, I mean, I'm working on a project right now with another designer. It's a book design project, complex typography. I write. I try to write almost on a daily basis, but I don't think I publish enough. I write in my blog. I have a blog called Non-Material Text. I give talks. I research. And lately I've been doing some exhibitions. I do a lot of different things. Yeah.
Sounds great, Keith. Keith was my instructor at Hong Kong University 20 years ago.
Oh my God, 20 years ago, really?
That sounds long, doesn't it?
It doesn't feel that long, to be honest. It feels much,
gotta bite my lip with my comments here. Number two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I thought that was a really tough question because I guess we're all unique in a way, and I have, I don't know, maybe you can say I'm third culture. I'm third culture as in I don't belong anywhere, but I belong everywhere. I think that's probably an interesting one for a lot of people. I don't know. And I thought of a word, praxis, which I thought really describes me quite accurately. This word means theory and action, or theory and practice. So yeah, I don't know if that's something like what you're looking for in this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been, I think, with the other guests kind of trying to brainstorm new words. It seems that we're at a loss for words with a lot of what we're trying to get at. I think praxis is a great one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another thing is I have a loud voice and I have a loud laugh. A lot of people tell me that. I don't know if you've met me. You probably already know this piece of information.
It's intimidating. It's an intimidating laugh.
Is it really?
But I like it. I like it. It's just, you gotta You got to handle it, you know? Okay, number 3. So why this of all things? Why do you do what you do in terms of career, in terms of life?
Right. I think when I think back, it is pretty inevitable that I do what I do today. Um, I guess the influence, goes back a long way actually, since I was little. Um, my dad studied graphic design. He was a fabric designer, so he actually did a lot of freelance work at home. So uh, every evening, we finish dinner and we clear the table, and he'll get his paints out, papers and tools and whatnot, and start working into the night. And that had a big influence on me really, really early in my life. So yeah, I was really fascinated by what he did, and especially the typographic stuff that he did. He had a whole stack of letter set in his drawer, and he let me use the ones that he finished with, and he taught me everything, how to kern and how to do everything properly as a professional, like a professional does. And I remember one day I asked him, can I be a designer? And he said, of course you can, you're already a designer. So I guess you could say, from that day on, I have been a designer. um, and I was probably around 10 years old. I don't know. I could have been younger. I don't remember exactly. And another thing is, long story short, I went to Emily Carr to study communication design. I started as a foundation student. And unlike a lot of my peers, I'm guessing, I spent a lot of time in the library at Emily Carr. In those days, it was on Granville Island, and I read a lot of things. The classes that I enjoyed the most, were the history and theory classes. And yeah, I was already doing some part-time jobs at that time. And quite early on, I was thinking, maybe I don't want to practice. I enjoy the thinking part, the writing part, and reading about design, thinking about the practice. And I kind of knew that a regular design practice job won't satisfy my curiosity. So it's kind of like, um I don't know, something inevitable that I'm doing this today. So yeah.
Yeah, I was also very early on in deciding on design. My choice at that time was industrial design, but like you, ended up in communication
Yeah.
design. I
Right.
would have been about
Yeah.
15 years old then. Yeah,
Right.
we
Right.
are the old hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I wanted to study architecture though. And my dad was kind of saying, in those days, um, there weren't a lot of degree courses. I mean, degree programs in design. And he said, "Oh, maybe you want to study architecture, in university." Um, and then I was trying that, but I guess I didn't make the grades. I didn't actually do the public exams in the UK, so I moved to Canada and got into Emily Carr instead.
I had a similar route. That's interesting.
Mm.
Okay. This one some people struggle with, but I know you've got your sets of answers here. But this one is, what does your future look like?
No, I don't have a crystal ball. And it's actually great that we don't have crystal balls, because we can shape it any way we like, really. I mean, I do believe that we have some control. uh, Although, I don't really plan ahead that much. I just go with the flow usually. So maybe there are going to be surprising things. I don't know. We as designers, we try to envision better futures, and that's what we do as a profession. So yeah, and then designers try to put visions into action as well. So we could do that um, as well for our lives. So I don't know. It's hard to answer this one. I don't know. What do you think?
I just finished a 5-year plan, and as soon as I
Yeah.
finished it, everyone asked me what my next 5-year plan was. But to be
Yeah.
honest, that's the only 5-year plan I've ever made in my life, and it was really hard to make that, and it was really hard to go
Right.
through it. And
Right.
I couldn't immediately come up with another 5-year plan. I'm still debating about what it might be. I'm not sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, as I said, I'm not big into, I don't have 5-year plans or whatever. I mean, I have weekly plans or yearly plans maybe, but I don't usually look that far into the future. So yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, here's a fun one. So let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into
Yeah.
what you do?
I like that question a lot, actually. Uh, but it, again, is a difficult one because, I used the word third culture earlier. Um, and I consider myself a world citizen because I've moved around quite a bit. Um, so I guess we call this sort of people adult third culture kid, ATCK. um, but I feel that I belong to a lot of places, but I also don't belong. I can feel at home in many places, but also feel isolated. I heard your TEDx talk as well,
Mhm.
and the airport is kind of like a third place, isn't it? Like you can say a non-place or a transitory place, and in a way, I feel like that. I moved to the UK to study in the 90s, really early on. Actually, I was 13 then. And it was a different world in those days because you had to write physical letters and send them by post. You didn't have internet or mobile phones and things like that. The closest thing was a fax machine, right? You could send a fax instantly. Uh, so distances were a lot greater than they are today. So now with the internet and everything, we're very connected with everywhere in the world. So place, you can say, it's not as important as before because we're so connected. But for me, it's still important because places really create meanings. Because we have people who are connected to us at different places and stories and history uh, and culture. So these are all, very influential, I guess, in shaping a person's thoughts or way of life. Um, but yeah, I've lived in the UK for a bit, but I've never felt really a strong connection to the country, to be honest. I've been feeling like an outsider, although there are a lot of people there that I care about, and a lot of my kind of history is there. But Hong Kong definitely has a special place in my heart. I'm here now because I was born here and my family was here. It's still a very unique kind of place. But and Canada, of course, Vancouver for me has a very special meaning, and it's home for me. My parents are there. I have relatives there and friends there, and a lot. I went through a lot in Vancouver as well. So these two places are always, special for me. So yeah, place is definitely important, but also less important at the same time.
Yeah. The non-place book, Mark Auge, the anthropologist,
Mm,
his book just arrived. I think it must have been out of print for a while, and it just came.
mm.
It's very
I haven't read
timely.
it, but yeah, I should read it.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you feel that as well?
I do. I mean, after giving that TED talk, started to have a stronger relationship with places that have less identity, airports, movie theaters, taxi cabs. And I kind of grew up that way too. So,
Yeah. Of
yeah,
course, you have a connection to Hong Kong too.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, places like Hong Kong, year 2000, really strong sense of place for me there. Other places, Vancouver, not so much. Could be any place. Yeah.
Vancouver does have its kind of non-placeness in a way. I think in a way that's also good because there are many possibilities because it's so diverse, right? I remember in one of my classes in Vancouver, we counted, other faculty and we were co-teaching, and we counted how many languages were spoken in the class. There were 13 spoken in one class. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, also, in such a diverse place like Vancouver, it means that cultural norms and a lot of our kind of what's expected behaviors and values and things like that. You need to really get through that. It's not really, there's no single kind of accepted way of doing things. There are many different ways of doing things and many different ways of thinking, and that diversity really is inspiring to me. Yeah.
I recently had a option to go to India and leave Vancouver for a bit, and
India is very interesting place.
It is interesting, and I had a guest this morning who made me feel really good about deciding to not go to India. And now I'm talking to you, and I'm feeling like maybe I should have gone. Strong sense of identity in that place. Really a place.
Maybe well, maybe you can connect to India virtually, you never know. Maybe you can take the job virtually. I have imagined, having virtual jobs, in different places, that's an actual thing now. It's happening. And to me, that's very interesting. Have a job in India, have a job at the same time in Hong Kong and in Vancouver. How interesting that would be.
I've been doing it 3 geographic locations at the same time. It's pretty confusing.
It is, yeah, it is. I mean, there's still the time difference that's really hard to kind of work out. Because I'm at 9 o'clock now. It's difficult to do business with Vancouver in Hong Kong, for example. 9 o'clock, and you're 6 o'clock in the evening. Yeah, with the UK, it's difficult too because our 5 o'clock is their 9 o'clock. So yeah,
that kind of disconnect with place that happens. I know what you mean. Okay, yeah. Number 6 here. If you had to start from scratch, what advice would you give to your former younger self?
Are you talking about your career-wise or
yeah, sure. Career, life. I think it's up for interpretation.
Yeah, but I'm actually thinking the opposite. What can I learn from my younger self? What did I have when I was younger that I don't have anymore? I often think about that. And when you're older, you kind of lose that sense of, purity and innocence, or that kind of that braveness of, not afraid to voice out things because you don't really think too much about how other people feel. I don't know. Maybe there's a boldness in my younger self that I probably don't have now. We're too safe, as we get older. When we think we're getting wiser, but in a way, we need that sense of innocence to drive us forward, to be creative, for example. So, I try to remind myself of that, my former self, that kind of energy and that kind of purity or innocence or boldness. Uh, yeah, I kind of think of it the other way. But I kind of grew up quickly because I went to the UK quite early on in my life, so I kind of grew up quickly. So I was kind of like a little bit precocious, you can say. And I've always been a little bit of an oddball. Uh, not so much nerdy, but liking things that other people didn't understand, or not really into popular culture or the mainstream stuff so much. So, maybe my advice to my former self would be to embrace all of that and not to think too much about what other people think. But I think it's more important the other way around, actually, to remind myself of my former self constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, being in Vancouver, you really kind of learn that people care about popular culture so much. And, as a young kind of
Mm,
trying to be cool, trying to be hip kid, the
yeah.
popular culture seemed like the obvious bad choice. Like, why would you ever choose that? And later in
Yeah,
life, you
right.
realize, oh, that's how you fit in, right? So,
That is how you fit in. Although I did really try too hard to do that, I suppose. I mean, I still don't. But I think, looking at kids these days, or the younger generation, or Gen Z these days, there's a lot more diversity than before,
mm,
I think. And I think because what we exposed to is so diverse as well. Whereas before, we watched the same TV shows, and now, everybody's finding, different things to watch and to read and to listen to. So I guess things are a little bit different now.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. I have 1,000 questions to respond with, but I won't. What's a day in your
We'll
life
keep this
like?
podcast short, I guess. Sorry.
No, I
Uh,
will.
yeah. My day is pretty boring. Usually, I mean, if you're talking about weekdays, I actually work an office job,
Mm,
and most of my time is spent in my office. But the interesting thing is I interact with my colleagues a lot, and students and colleagues, and industry partners, because we have a lot of external projects. So I meet a lot of people, and that's what really gets me going. But when I'm desk bound, I work on emails like a lot of people do. Um, I work on administrative stuff. I do the budgets. I do some planning. I do paperwork for the department and the center. Uh, they're boring, but ultimately, that's what benefits. It's part of being an educator. These things ultimately benefit students.
mm,
Uh, One thing I really enjoy doing, but probably not as much as not a lot of time. I have for that is to strategize and to initiate things and to be creative about what I do, to brainstorm things. Uh, because sometimes, on a day-to-day basis, you're just trying to put out fires. So I still try to build in time to do that, and with my colleagues as well, to brainstorm and to strategize. That part I really enjoy. I don't really teach so much these days, sadly. I'm still very interested in teaching, but the nature of my job doesn't allow me a lot of time to do that. But I still, sometimes teach, a professional course outside of my day job. I enjoy that.
mm,
And research, of course, look at stuff in our archive, and think about projects to do, and that kind of stuff. And I should leave a little bit earlier, I guess. I sometimes, when it gets to about 5 o'clock, I think, oh, maybe I should think about leaving soon, and then before I know it, it's 6 o'clock, 6:30 or 7, and then I go home and I have dinner with my spouse, and watch some Netflix and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it's that would be a very typical kind of day for me. Of course, weekends I won't do any admin stuff, but I still read and do other things and go to the beach or that kind of stuff. Yeah, so yeah, not terribly interesting, I guess. It's a pretty regular kind of office job, if you will. Yeah.
We just had a guest, Dr. Garnett Hertz, on the show, a very popular
Yes, I heard
guest.
that one.
Yeah, his knee-jerk reaction to ascending into academic administration is to go to the skate park and do graffiti.
Yes, right.
I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, swimming for me is a really good way of clearing one's mind, I guess. Walking in the city is also good. I think these two things really help. It makes you more creative, and it helps you figure out problems. I think when you're just swimming laps, your mind is clear. You when you have stuff that you can't figure out, after a swim, sometimes it really it's solved. Walking is the same. Walking and looking at what people are doing, looking at trees and the lights and and the just the beauty in the city, it really helps. And yeah.
My neighborhood community center pool is like this Olympic level pool. It's pretty wild.
Oh wow, yeah.
Happens sometimes in Vancouver, and I think probably I remember that from Hong Kong, but yeah, I should go.
Well, our pool here is not like Olympic size, but
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So number 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
It's hard. It's really hard when you have a busy day job. It's hard. I mean, at work we have a staff development program. We can actually sign up for different things and they pay for it. It's really good. We do that. But reading things online, or books and magazines and things like that to keep updated, that's an easier thing to do, I guess, to kind of build some of that into your day. I do that. Yeah, it's hard because there's so many new things happening, especially in the field of communication design. Everybody's talking about metaverse. I hardly know anything about it. I read a McKinsey report the other day, and suddenly it makes sense now. I try to keep up, but it's hard. It's really hard. And I subscribe to 2 magazines, and one of them is iMagazine. Is a lot of graphic designers really like that magazine. I still want to keep up with my own kind of fields in a way, my own practice. But the other one I find really valuable is Harvard Business Review, because they don't just talk about business. Actually, they talk a lot about work, leadership, management, self-development, and the new kind of technology stuff as well, and how that impacts on business. That's all very useful and very inspiring, actually, for a communication designer to think about. 20 years ago, I would have been interested in reading a business magazine, but now I do. Yeah. So
I guess I subscribe. I get a printed version of the London Review of Books.
Yes, yeah, that's a good one too.
It must be my dad who's sending those to me, because I never.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but I keep getting them. It's refreshing, to get some print.
Yeah, you should call him and thank him for that.
No doubt. No doubt. Okay, I'm excited about this next one. So, so what tools do
I
you use? Are you more digital and are you more pen and paper? And I'm excited about this because you use a typewriter.
yeah, I do. I use quite a few typewriters actually.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, um, I still think paper is a great technology, is one of the greatest technologies and inventions. Pens too. But I'd like to think I am digitally savvy. I've been using a Mac. My first Mac was in '93 actually. So I'm pretty comfortable with software and I'm not a techie uh, at all, but I'm pretty versed with using digital tools for my creative work or for my for my work. And uh I don't know, I mean, there's something about older technology that I think still have a value in can still have a value in what we do these days. I discovered well discovered I mean I started a blog. It was a COVID project in March 2020, I think it was,
Mm.
to think about um, material text and non-material text, and how that affects the way we write, the way we edit, and the way we publish.
Mm.
And so much of it is technology, because a lot of the text that we produce, text as in words, we use we do it digitally. We use text message. We type in word processing software. A lot of it is digital now. Of course, there are benefits to that, because everything is instantaneous and you can sync across different devices and share and easily share with other people and publish even. But does it mean that text on paper has no more value? I think it still does, actually. Um, Part of it is, I have a love and fear of writing. Maybe I have I have more of a fear of publishing than writing itself, writing for publishing. And I find that part of the reason why I procrastinate in writing digitally is because I go back to edit instead of writing.
Mm.
I think too much about what I've written instead of what I'm going to write. So I spend too much time, tweaking stuff where I should be moving forward. And after discovering the manual typewriter, because you can't go back and you know change a whole paragraph, not easily anyway, it kind of forces me to go forward. And I fell in love with that way of writing. uh, I mean, I did learn to type on a manual typewriter when I was little, but I never had to use a typewriter to write long prose at all, because by the time I was in later on in high school, I was already writing my essays, my English essays on the computer.
Mm.
So that I think there's still a value in older technology, and these different modes of text production uh, actually impacts on the way we think and on the way we ideate, on the way we write, on the way we consume texts, even. So I'm very much into that. I also like pens. I have a large collection of fountain pens and whatever writing tools.
Mm.
I really love that. There's something about handwriting as well. Uh, you know, I I wrote answers to your questions quite quickly and sent it back to you, right? Now
Mm.
I actually have a printed copy of my responses, but
Ah,
I have markups using a pen,
mm,
adding things and just jotting down, further thoughts on that printout. So annotation is important, and
mm,
it's easier when it's done by hand.
mm,
And that kind of printed words and also handwritten words on this piece of paper actually helps me to shape my thoughts. So I quite kind of like that. But yeah, talking about digital tools, I do use an iPad. I use a note taking app called Good Notes. It's a Hong Kong startup. It's an excellent app for taking notes and sharing PDFs and marking up PDFs. So I use it for when I go to a lecture, when I go to a conference or something. I can take notes, but I can also, take a picture of the slide and then in real time put that into my notebook and annotate on the side. So that really is useful. But that doesn't mean I don't use a paper notebook. I do that too. I use paper a lot still. I use Keynote a lot
mm.
because I have to give a lot of presentations. But now I like using Google Slides even more because I can collaborate easily with other people. I often have to do that, create slides with my colleagues or documents with my colleagues. And Notion is really good.
Mm,
Notion,
mhm.
I've started using it for a while now, and I think I still probably know maybe 1% of the features in Notion. Do you use Notion, Thomas?
I know about it, or I know of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it does come up a lot.
Yeah, I think what's so good about that is you can create databases, which you couldn't do easily before.
Mm,
You can kind of create a database of images
mm,
and bits of text and quotes you're researching about, and that's really handy. But it's so complicated; it's really hard to keep up with it.
mm.
You can do a lot with it. Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
And some of our audience will be early on in typography. And I was wondering if you could
Uh,
maybe add something about digital typography and pen and paper
okay.
typography, something.
Okay. I use InDesign a lot, and actually, I do letterpress sometimes. Not extensively, but I do know a bit about the craft of letterpress printing,
Mhm,
and those kind of letterpress printing and typesetting with lead type still has a kind of InDesign still has a foundation in that, should I say.
mhm,
um and the fact that everything is kind of a modular unit of lead kind of helps you to develop a very tangible way of understanding
mhm,
space, understanding marks on paper and indents and leading. It's a very tangible experience in letterpress. So
mhm,
that kind of experience, when you bring it to the computer, that craft is still there actually, but
mhm.
a little bit more elusive on the computer, in fact, because it's all pixels and light and things like that. But I thought that letterpress experience really gave me some grounding, or kind of enhances the way I handle typography on the computer. But the thing is, I mean, typography might sound like a really kind of specialized craft or whatever you call it, discipline, but everybody practices typography. Everybody who writes practices typography. Uh, Whereas 30 years ago, people might not have thought about that. It might have been more specialized, but now it's very accessible.
Mhm.
And I guess I can talk about this all day, but it's going to take too long. But things like I see a relationship between, the traditional art of typography with the way we're handling information on the web now. HTML, CSS, database, XML, all of that stuff has something to do with typography. And we often think of those things as tech or UX or things like that, but really it has its roots in typography. It's just that we think of the way we handle textual information now, or not textual information, or non-textual information, pictures, even databases. We see that as UX or programming on whatever. But I really see a strong relationship with our age-old craft of typography that we can learn a lot from and can kind of transform into. Yeah.
With my students, whenever I mentioned typography, they would go to Google Fonts and pick Montserrat. So eventually I just told
no.
I just told them, just go to Google Fonts and pick Montserrat like everybody else. And then they started probing me. They're like, oh, what other options are there? What is this typography?
That's a way of that's a good way of kind of stimulating their thoughts. I mean, just to throw something at them and see how they react, that's good. But I guess, for beginners, I don't know, or for a lot of people who don't know really much about typography, to them, the typeface is the most important thing, but very often it's not. Actually, very often it's how you structure information, which is also part of typography, right? So, for my master's classes in the past, I've been teaching, I had a project where they had to do the information architecture of an online shopping site. At first glance, it has nothing to do with typography, but the thinking behind it with information architecture does have something to do with typography, because you're structuring information. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, number 10. How do you deal with work-life balance? People have struggled with this question recently.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't deal with work-life balance. Maybe that's maybe that's not relevant anymore, because
that seems to be the common knee-jerk reaction is work-life balance.
Yeah.
Don't ask me that. Like, I don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you, the traditional way of thinking about work is something that you don't want to do. Work is a chore, is torture, whatever. A 9-to-5 job, is torture. After work, you go and have a drink and do what you enjoy doing. Work is not something that you enjoy, and that's why you have to take holidays. You go, you go on a trip. And then you work till you're 60, you retire, and then you have a good life. Why wait till 60? It's absurd, that kind of thought. It's, why wait till you're 60? Why not do it now? So, I mean, of course, not everybody are in jobs that they really love doing. I'm lucky enough to be in a job that I like doing, but at the same time, I still have a lot of things that I have to put up with in my job, right, that I don't like. So I think it's I've heard of this term, work-life harmony. I don't know where I heard this, but recently. I think it's how to it's how to live with it, actually. And I mean, I do work in an office-based job. There are goods and bads about being in that kind of workplace, but even with my office job, there's a lot of flexibility in how I spend my time, right? I mean, okay, I mean, I already said that, as a rule, unless it's really, really pressing, I try not to do admin work in the weekends, right? But for stuff like, brainstorming ideas about a project, the research part of what I do, I happily do that in the weekends and evenings, because those things are, fulfilling to do and enjoyable to do, or even, what you would call, you know, staff development stuff. When I read something, that doesn't mean it's work. I want to grow. That's why I'm learning new things. I'm reading something new. That is enjoyable in itself, and it should not be seen as a chore. But I mean, I think when I talk about work-life balance like this, I'm sure a lot of people don't agree with me, and it probably would offend a lot of people, because I know a lot of people are not in a job like this, and we have to be aware of that too. I mean, but I think I have some friends who have, maybe they should be on this show as well. They have an initiative called Make Meaningful Work. I'm good friends with them, Dan and Joe. They what they do is they have designed tools and learning programs surrounding how to move from sleepwalking to sparkling at work. To put it really simply, I think that's a very nice way of putting it. It's very simple. We are focusing on the transactional aspect in our work. The daily routines, the paperwork, and all the boring stuff. But what they are thinking is not about looking for a meaningful job, but it's to insert meaning into the work that you do, whatever you're doing. It's going to take too long to go into details, but I find that thinking is really healthy. I think that kind of thinking is not, oh, I need to quit my job and I need to volunteer, or because you can actually do something meaningful even with your current job without changing too much of it, but changing your mindset about it. And thinking about the tasks that you do, thinking about the larger issues that surround the tasks that you need to perform. I think that's very, very important too. I might be filling out a form, but what does that mean? That might be for a scholarship application for a student. Think about the greater meanings of what you do, instead of like the really boring routine stuff that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
To bring
How
it
do
to
you
a
feel
basic
about
level,
this?
to bring it to a basic level, one of my students commented that design is not a job for me; it's a kind of a way of life or something like that. And
Yeah.
in a way, I wonder if that's perhaps how it is for you as well.
Yes, it is. It definitely is. But I think it goes further than design, though. I think it's because of my role, I don't just deal with design stuff, right? I mean, I deal with students and how, I mean, their learning experience, ultimately is, it's their learning experience. It's preparing for whatever comes after, that's the meaning is there, regardless of whether they end up being a designer or not. I still have to deal with that.
I like that. That's a great. I mean, we're gonna have to have you back and get the full take on all of this. But number 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing? And it could be career-wise or life.
Yeah. I mentioned architecture before. I'm still interested in that, but I'd probably be too bad at math to be a good architect. But I like architecture theory. I like the way of thinking about buildings and communities and how people use spaces. If there's a chance, I might go and study for an architecture degree or whatever. I'm increasingly interested in publishing. Anything to do with words and language, really. I love that. Yeah, and broadcasting, I'm interested in that too. Also have to do with communication. Yeah. Or I mean, the easiest way to move into might be to be a full-time designer again.
Mm.
That's also interesting, especially, UX design, information design, that kind of stuff.
Mm.
I also think about working with animals because I do like animals a lot. But I imagine, having a farm or something, but I don't think I can deal with all of that. The nasty stuff that goes with that. I don't know. Yeah.
This morning we had Al Jones on the show whose job title is Curious Human.
Oh,
And
wow. I
he,
like that.
yeah, that's a great episode. You should check that out. He
Yeah.
talks a lot about graduate studies and more graduate studies,
Yeah.
which is the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, yes. Well, I still have a PhD that I started 9 years ago that I didn't finish.
Mm.
So yeah, that is in my future, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, number 12. What would you not like to do? And I guess again, we're talking about career or life.
Okay. I don't want to be unhappy. That's for sure. I don't think I can handle a medical job.
Mm.
I can't deal with blood and all of that stuff. I don't think I can be I I might be able to be an entrepreneur, but I probably won't be able to be an accountant or a kind of, a business developer. I'm not really that, I don't have that kind of mindset.
Mm.
I don't like dealing with numbers as the main part of my job. I do need to deal with numbers with my current job, but I mean, if that's exclusively what I need to deal with, I wouldn't like that because I'm more interested in more a more human side of a job. So if it's just number crunching, I won't be happy with that.
13. Is 13 still unlucky? I don't know that. Um,
Huh?
is
Oh,
13
13.
is it an unlucky number? When I was growing up, 13
uh,
was very unlucky. I don't know.
no, I was actually talking about that with Cherry last night.
Are you kidding?
The number 13.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how it came up, but I just said I don't like that number. It's not because, and she said, "Oh, yeah, you're so westernized." I said, "No, it's not because of that. I just don't like odd numbers in general. I like even numbers." Yeah.
Well, number
I
13.
said I actually said I prefer number 14 than 13, but she said, "Oh, 14 is unlucky," but no, actually 14 sounds a lot more pleasant. We live on a 14th floor, actually.
iPhone 14. It's coming. What's your favorite?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your favorite word, quote, or sentence? This is number 13, so take it as you will.
Yes. Well, I love this quote: "Love, work, and knowledge are the well springs of our lives. They should also govern it," by Willem Rick.
Mm.
Um, I guess I already touched a little bit on that with your questions about lifelong learning, work-life balance and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I find that you know those three things probably sums up everything about life, really, I think. Yeah, in a very general way. Yeah.
Least favorite word, quote, or sentence.
I thought a little bit about that one. And I don't know. I mean, it sounds odd, but yeah, I think design is one of my least favorite words. Although I call myself a designer, in the beginning of the podcast.
Mm.
Um, but really, I mean, I don't like it so much because of how people use it. Really, when when I say I'm a designer, I remember I was in London on a conference trip or something, and then, you know, people like, you know, chatting to you in a cafe. I think I was chatting with a person, a stranger actually, in a cafe. Oh, I'm here on a conference, a design conference. Oh yeah, yeah. London is really good for like fashion and things like that. And I said, no, I'm not a fashion designer. You know, I'm probably as far from a fashion designer as one can be. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just misused a lot. I think you probably find that as well, right? When
I
people
can
say design,
definitely, yeah, I can relate. It's not design that bothered me, but it was like designed, like
oh
it's
yeah,
something that you do to something that really,
yes,
like when I was younger, that was really a problem. I couldn't deal with that.
right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, like, oh, there's no design in this chair, for example. What
Mm.
do you mean there's no design? There's always design. The design is design is the most fundamental thing about being a human, isn't it? I mean,
Well, it's not
everything that
mascara,
we
right?
see, huh?
It's not
Is
mascara, right? You don't
right.
apply it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Design is just is, right? I mean, you know, think I can't think of anything that we, you know, human made. Okay, I'm not talking about the natural environment. I'm talking
Mm,
about things that are made by humans
mm,
that are not designed. It's impossible.
mm,
It's like I was talking to a designer who's really into typography, Hong Kong based, and I said, you know, typography can change the world. Typography does change the world. And they
mhm.
said, no, I don't think we can do that. You know, we're designers. I don't think we can do that. I was like, I mean, what? You know, our whole civilization is built on that. It's built on typography. I mean, the broad definition of typography, um, not printing. I mean, not letterpress printing. As soon as you need to kind of make language visible, as soon as you need to make that seen, you need to make decisions about form, and that's when typography happens, right? It's not laying out a page, it's not flowing text into a text box, right? I mean, if the broader definition of typography, and it's the same thing with design, right?
Did you hear this kickback that Don Norman was getting for saying that he wouldn't do small design projects anymore? He wanted to do these world-changing projects, and there must have been a comment flood after that, and he just got trashed. Poor guy.
Well, because everything starts from, well, the thing is, I mean, it's great that he's doing that, but because a lot of our problems in the world now is systemic, right? So we
Mhm,
need to think systemically
mhm,
increasingly.
mhm,
Whereas before, design was more about making things, you know,
mhm,
producing things. Now is more about, you know, planning things. I think that's why I think the Chinese characters for design is really good, because it has planning in it. It
mhm,
has kind of like strategizing in it.
mhm,
It's not like it's not about the form. It's about the act.
mhm,
And but I still do think, though, you know, systemic, yes, but I still do think, though, even if we're making a small thing, we are kind of envisioning a small future and making a small change in in the near future. I mean, that it is also important. Um, you know, small steps are important too, I think.
mhm.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was binging some podcasts, and I stumbled on Mauro
Hmm.
Portini's podcast, who's the VP
Hmm.
of design at PepsiCo, and
Yeah.
he was he was hosting John Maeda. I don't know how to pronounce John Maeda,
Yeah.
um, and John Maeda was a little bit cranky. He wasn't very happy to be on that podcast. I think he thought it was a small project.
You need to send me a link to that.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, next.
And what was the main point there
Oh, the main point
with
was
the
that he saw that as a small project, I think, and he was hoping for some bigger project.
oh, okay, all right, okay, right, okay.
But Mara
Yeah, I
Portini was
mean,
very happy. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's a lot of that these days. Number
Yeah,
16, what keeps you up at night?
I think you left the question out.
Oh, did
Is
I?
it 15, right? Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
one
Number 15.
15.
If
Yeah.
you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be? That's like, oh yeah. Are we is it praxis? Here we go.
Well, actually, I wrote down in between. That was my first reaction. But
Okay.
praxis is good. Praxis is good. But the in between part is has to do with the the third culture thing as well, or
Mm,
kind of hard to define or don't want to be defined. Maybe
mm,
you can say between theory and practice, or academia and design,
mm.
or in between word and deed, and in between a lot of different things. I like that state. I like that state.
I was on a call this morning about TED, and so we were talking about airports, and there's a great
Yeah.
Hollywood movie called The Terminal with Tom Hanks.
Yes.
And
Yes. Right.
the airport administrator says that he's stuck in a crack, and why would he stay in a crack? And you talk about the airport as a crack, and it made me think of this idea of crack as something completely like very broad and has lots of possibility. And I never thought of it that way until today. So, but that yeah,
Well,
that's a
what
word.
yeah. I mean, I like that because I like things being ambiguous
Mm-hmm.
and blurry.
Mm-hmm.
I actually I think we should be cautious of things that are so well defined that everybody know what it means. I think I like that state of blurriness or ambiguity, because there are a lot of possibilities and you're not kind of defined by the status quo. Although it's hard to be in that kind of state because people generally like putting things in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that state is really full of possibilities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I could talk about this for a long time. Let's see.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic, I think.
Um, what's a dream you're chasing?
Uh, you've skipped 16 again.
Oh,
But I can answer that one first.
let's switch them up. Let's switch for
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Okay.
no problem. Um, Very simple. I think to be happy and satisfied. I know that sounds really corny, but we all want to be in that state, don't we?
That's so
And
Canadian. Canadians are very happy.
it is, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It is. And to live a meaningful life. I mean, that's also very corny, but ultimately, that that's what we try to do. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that you will never be sad and unsatisfied or unhappy
Mm,
or not meaningful. I mean, that's also part of life as well.
mm.
So yeah, uh, but
And so
ultimately it would
so
be that.
reverse order here. What keeps you up at night?
Okay. Um, uh, I'm sleeping pretty well these days because there are no unresolved issues at work. There are no looming deadlines yet. We just made a deadline yesterday. There's no looming deadlines. I think usually are the things that really need my brain work. I mean, for example, I still worry about, I need to do a conference presentation. Now it's like we need to record a conference presentation, right? It's even
Mm,
more pressure than
mm,
doing it live. But
right.
but um yeah, I worry about these things. I mean, after I've recorded it, I'm fine. But if I'm still trying to figure out my argument
Mm,
and I can't kind of I can't kind of put it together in a sensible way yet, it keeps me up. That would keep me up. Or if it's an essay I need to submit, there's a deadline and I still haven't figured out, what I'm trying to say. That keeps me up.
I have something
Yeah.
like 20,000 unread emails, and so I wiped my iPhone in hopes that I can get rid of that, and then the iPhone automatically makes me keep them. So I still now I have like 21,000 or something.
Well, okay, yes, actually, I use Microsoft Outlook, and I've had an email backup problem that I haven't solved yet, but that won't keep me up at night. No. I've left it, basically. It's on my old work computer, and yeah, actually, I've forgotten about that now. Now I need to deal with that next week, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, please.
No. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So final stretch, 18. What inspires you?
Everything. I know it's an easy answer, but people, what their ideas, what they do, what they create. Human beings are great. They've made a lot of very interesting things, even if they've I'm recently reading a book. I won't tell the author. I won't say who the author is. It's driving me nuts because I think the arguments have no basis, but it's inspiring still. Right? It still makes me think. So yeah, I mean, a lot of things that humans make, they are inspiring, and environments, definitely inspiring. Places, architecture, cultures. Yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anything that wouldn't, in some sort of way inspire me. Yeah.
Any advice you'd like to share?
I'm not big on advice because everybody's different, but yeah, work is love made visible. Yeah, is from the prophet Khalil Gibran. I think that has to do with work, but I mean, it doesn't have to be work. It could be other kind of efforts that you make to do things. I mean, yeah, I find that inspiring for myself, and yeah, that's what I want to share.
That's great.
Yeah.
And number 20, everyone's favorite. How do we, the listeners, keep tabs on you? Where do we follow you? Where do we check out your stuff?
I think the single point of contact would be the website keithtam.net. And there you find articles, my email addresses, my other blogs, and my Medium, Behance, and LinkedIn and whatnot. So that's probably the easiest way to find me. Yeah.
Okay, well, so much gratitude. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for
No
being
problem. It's been a pleasure.
We have to book you again and have you back, because this could be like 10 episodes. I don't know why it isn't. And we'll have to keep tabs on the guest you recommended, a Hong Kong based.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'll connect you guys. Yeah,
definitely. We're
looking they are actually UX consultants too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But the funny thing about them was, I had a client from more than 20 years ago in Vancouver. I was contacting to talk about some kind of she's a management consultant. Maybe she is also a guest you want to have on your show as well.
Okay.
Donna Jones, my longtime client. I was chatting to her about some of the things, and then she was saying, "Oh, you should meet Dan and Joe." And then I met up with them. I thought I was going to talk UX with them, and they ended up telling me about make meaningful work, which I thought was really good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'll put you in touch. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Keith, and we'll
No problem.
I'm
A
sure
pleasure.
we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye.